you find adventure at the click of a button, or from the turn of a page, or the casting of a die. Join your hosts, Conniff and Shiloh, on an unforgettable journey. Questing the multiverse. Welcome, listener, to episode 22, or episode 1 of season 2, first episode of 2024, first episode after the long winter. I don't know, however you want to look at it. We welcome you in this new year of questing the multiverse. And Shiloh, I have a icebreaker question for you that I thought about while I was showering. Big surprise. Am I right? So
sure.
I'll pitch this to it's nothing weird, despite my proclivities.
Shower.
Yeah, whatever. But this, I had this thought, and it was brought about by a conversation Ardeth and myself were having. So, listener, Ardeth is one of our friends. Shiloh and him play a lot of New World together, but he's been around the block. World of Warcraft, all sorts of things. Call of Duty, what you name it, ESO, Guild Wars 2. And this sort of was birthed out of this conversation about how different people play games differently. But with that said, there's like the standard majority type player in these individual genres. And so this genre was MMO, RPG. And so the concept was what... I guess like feature or aspect of MMOs specifically do you gravitate towards the least? So which feature in an MMO would you say is just not for you? And if you want to think about it, I will give my answer and then I'll send it your way.
All right. Yeah.
But mine was crafting. Now, PvP probably. Okay. I feel like PvP might be kind of the obvious one. And for a lot of people, PvP, MMO, or MMO PvPing is their life, and that's what they do. But for me, meh. But to actually answer this prompt, it would be crafting. As like an actual like gameplay loop that I want to spend time in. So ESO's crafting was very much a, you do your crafting writs and you're done. Like you never crafted gear unless you were making a new tune, because the crafted gear was not good compared to monster drops. When we played World of Warcraft last year, didn't touch crafting at all. Guild Wars 2, crafting was a means to legendary weapons, so that was a part of something. But I mean, of all the hours and hundreds of hours I spent in that game, crafting was, an afterthought. They had solved how you get to 500 in each discipline, the cheapest with the fewest resources, and so I would just follow that. Well, what really got me thinking about this specifically was Final Fantasy XIV and how not a single time in me playing that game have I even picked up a crafting or gathering profession at all. So crafting for me, and the thing is, I like when games have good crafting. RuneScape might be the outlier to this, but that's because a lot of the game is leveling skills. So what about you? Crafting for me, what's your least favorite MMO feature or design or gameplay loop, I guess?
I think the obvious answer would be PvP, but I don't think that that's the correct answer.
It's a good enough answer.
I think it's one of them. Honestly, I think that it is raiding.
Interesting.
Is my least favorite. Yeah.
Now, can you elaborate on this for the listener?
Well,
like, what aspect? Like the actual content, or
no?
Okay.
I think it's from this. What it stems down to is just getting a large group of people, and those numbers have been dwindled upon since the days of EverQuest, since the days of EverQuest 2, since the old 24-man raids and WoW. or however many it was. They can in EverQuest 1 it was originally like 40 or something ridiculous like that. And it's just that many people. I'm an introvert. I don't necessarily like that many people around me in real time, like in real life, let alone in my ear space.
My earbuds.
So yeah, and it's just, especially the way it basically is structured. It's very competitive. It's high end. It generally can be toxic, not necessarily all the time. The most fun I've had raiding was recently with our ESO raid team, and even that, burnt me out.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when I looked at EverQuest 2, I played that game for almost 6 years and then eventually got burnt out basically because of rating.
Right. I did want to pause you real quick. You said recent, but that ESO rating was like literally like the summer of 2022. So it's been a long time. And I share your burnout there. So.
Yeah. Well, it's recent to me in as far as what I'm capable of doing. And especially as we get older, I mean, you've mentioned this before. We get older, time becomes a lot more valuable and a lot less frequent. And it just takes a lot of rating time. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of choreography, which is another thing I don't like about most rating. I don't like choreographed fights. They just seem silly.
Now, is there a fine line between what you're talking about here and the same level of content, but with dungeons? So smaller, like 4 to 5 man group.
That I like.
Okay.
And it's just because it is more small scale. And sure, it is some of those fights and some dungeons can be fairly choreographed. But a lot of them are just mass chaos and just trying to make order out of the chaos, I suppose. Kind of satisfies an OCD itch in me. And when things are way beyond my control, your control, most people's control, that's when it gets frustrating. For me and probably for most people. But so honestly, I think it's rating because I have played PvP centric games before Warhammer Online comes into mind. It's a very PvP structured game and enjoyed the hell out of it. I mean, and I guess you would say the New World is, but I don't really touch PvP other than doing some faction missions, which are PvE centric, and basically most people just leave you alone and let you go about your business. So, I think it would have to be that higher end rating. It doesn't really appeal to me. And, if I can find a means, usually it like PvP, I'll do it to get my stuff and then get out of Dodge as quick as I can.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily good for, number one, me. Number two, the people that I'm raiding with. I don't have necessarily the commitment probably that some of these other people do, and like it as much as some of these other people do. So that's going to be my answer, I suppose. Crafting, I don't mind. Crafting, I actually enjoy. I thoroughly enjoy crafting in Guild Wars 2. Some systems I don't like. Like, I don't touch WoWs much at all. It's just like, it is what it is. New World's a little too, I don't know.
Now survival game craftings, which this will...
That's a necessity.
Yeah, and it'll segue into our what you've been up to. So I did want to say the ice has been broken. The dust has been shaken off. We are back. 2024. Yeah. We're back to quest in your verse. Maybe that should be our tagline.
Questing your verse.
Questing in your verse since 2023.
Sounds dirty.
To segue from the crafting thing, survival games. So what you've been up to, I've been playing a lot of V Rising, which is a early access, I guess, currently a vampire survival game. You play as a vampire freshly awoken from a tomb or something. I don't know how that all works. But you're set upon this world to etch out a living. I mean, survival game. Where it stands out to me, though, is that, like, aside from just gathering resources, building up, like, a base and all that, there are these V-Bloods that you can go and hunt. And so that, you know, and by doing so, you unlock recipes for either other castle-related decorations or utility things like refinement workstations, whether like a forge, a smithy, whatever. But then you also unlock new abilities, some of which are like form changes. So you can transform into a rat, or you can transform into a bear, a wolf, whatever. And so the interesting thing is, while in MMOs, I'm not really focused on crafting at all. Like, it's just kind of like a necessary evil in my eyes. With survival games, that becomes my whole focus. So I've got like about 44 hours in V Rising so far. And a great deal of that has been building this mansion of a castle in the middle of these woods. You know, crafting the resources necessary, hunting them down, you know, whether it's like hides from animals or chopping trees or breaking stone or whatever, but then taking like, you know, base tier resources and turning them into higher tier and running multiple forges and sawmills and stuff, you know, all this stuff. I have greatly been enjoying that. And so I guess it might be, I mean, obviously that's a huge part of those games and a pretty big point. So you couldn't really like V Rising if you didn't like that, but it's just an interesting little quirk, I suppose, I have, that there are things that I just fully enjoy in certain scenarios I do not enjoy in others. So I guess that's true with life, you know?
Yeah, and the MMO menu is much grander than a survival game. So you almost have to pick a focus or several foci. And sometimes something has to get left out. You know, if you're a PvPer and a crafter, well, then you may not care about PvE that much. Or you may care about it, but may not focus on it as much as a true PvEer and a crafter. So, or a raider and a PvEer, or, you know, however it goes down, or maybe you're just into fishing. I don't know. But, you know, you can't necessarily do everything. I mean, I try to, and I'm sure you do too, but there are things that just kind of have to get left out. So,
yep, that's fair. Well, I've been playing V Rising. I finished Portal 1, 2, and a new mod for 2 that's kind of like a 1.5 in between the two. And so I completely played through all 3 of those, loved them. I'm sure they'll be on my end of year review. But V Rising, and then I recently made a Blood Elf monk for World of Warcraft. And I'll talk about why later. But, and then a funny little story with that is my kids love to like create characters in these games. And so I'll be like, hey, you know, kid, come.
Kid 1.
One of them.
Kid 3. Yeah.
Come help me make a character, and I'll let them pick everything. And so my youngest daughter comes in, and she's a bit of a wild child. Just in general, like has this really tight, curly, bushy hair. And I'm like, okay, help me out here. What should I make in World of Warcraft? And so I go through every single race on Alliance, every single race on Horde, and she landed, it was between the undead or the troll. And this is like a young, like 3-year-old here. So she picked troll. And she wanted blue skin with purple tattoos, and then this wild, like, crest faux hawk hair with long braids. And it was just like...
Got vetoed.
Yeah. No, she wanted that. I let it. Yeah,
you
the
just let her
character
pick the
exists.
Oh, nice.
It exists in the game now. It's a troll druid, and she wanted druid because it can turn into animals. So
Yeah.
naturally. But yeah, it was just fascinating. So that's what I've been up to. What about you, Shiloh? You've been
Oh, man.
working with wood a lot.
Yeah.
understand it.
Or, yeah. I won't get too far into that, but mainly New World. It kind of took over, and I mentioned it last year on our kind of the comfort game of the year for me,
2023.
which was New World. And I know you as well, but here in Tennessee, we got about, I want to say 8 inches of snow a few weeks ago. And so we kind of got snowed in a little bit and had some extra days off work. And there's nothing like settling down with a comfy MMO when you don't have anything else to do except for cook food and
survive,
watch shows and read and, play music. And
you were playing a real life survival game.
I was, yeah, in the snow. I spent a lot of time in the Great Cleave and just running PvP missions and gathering stuff. And
Nice.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. And a group of us have kind of resurfaced and started to play that and running some expeditions. And we ran Weevil Artist and I ran our first mutated dungeon, which wasn't nearly that bad. It was kind of like running Vet Spindle Clutch. It's like, well, why didn't we do this sooner? Once you get your legs from, you start to know a game a little bit more, and you're like, oh, that wasn't that bad. Things hit a little harder, but it's fine. Yeah, and other than that, we played a little bit of V Rising. I still need to get back into that, and I don't think I'll ever get caught up with you or Tempest or even Jeff or anybody else that's playing, but eventually I'll get there, and because I do love that game.
It is, because you have the high level people that can just come and help you kill all the higher level V bloods for stuff. So
yeah, we'll see.
No pressure, just whenever you feel like it, if you feel like it, even.
That's really about it, honestly. And I've made kind of shoehorning off of what you just said about WoW. This morning I made a fire mage, a Volpera fire mage named Kimchi with a Q, because with a K was taken. So
I thought about that, and you could call her Chimchi because QI is like chi, right? In some sort of Asian culture,
maybe
with chakra and all that stuff. But yeah, Kimchi.
No.
I'm excited to play with her. So
yeah, I'm enjoying her so far. And she's a little squishier than my monk or even my rogue. I have to remind myself of that, but she does hit really hard. And she's still only level 20. So
you made her today, and she's level 20.
Yeah. Well, Volpera start out at 10.
Oh,
like right off the gate.
I was gonna say, it's like you're a true gamer. And I'm not.
I did it. Yeah, I power leveled her a little bit, but I mean, you can't really do that in WoW. I just had to go.
Well, you got to skip Exile's Reach, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's why too.
That
Exile's
is
Reach
the benefit of rolling up a character as one of the
new races.
Yeah, new associated races or whatever they call them.
I think it's if you don't have a character on a specific faction. So like all the characters I have already in WoW were all Alliance. And I recall when I rolled up the Death Knight or one of the other ones, I was able to basically skip Exile's Reach.
Yeah. Death Knight started out on Wrath of the Lich King on
So maybe that's why.
Northrend.
Yeah. But then I put, this Blood Elf, I was either choose that or the original Blood Elf starting zone. And I was like, I think I'll just go with Exile's Reach because I really don't remember how to play much, and I've heard that Exile's Reach is a better tutorial than obviously anything from the base game. So
Yeah. Yep.
okay, well, that's what you've been up to with your host Shiloh Waltz. Dun dun dun. Let's talk the rest of this episode. This is really just an introduction into 2024. And with that comes a look at two specific, topics of discussion. The first would be any New Year's resolutions Shiloh or I have. And that one will probably be shorter. And then the meat of this episode is going to be, what are we looking forward to in 2024, video game and otherwise? It's obviously not as much of a jam-packed year as 2023 was, but there's still some things. But before we get there, Shiloh, do you have any New Year's resolutions of any kind?
I try not to make any, but for the sake of the podcast, because that's a pretty boring answer, I thought about it a little bit. As a non-gaming related, I think if you'd asked me this last year, I probably would have put buy a house on this list, and now I'm like, maybe we'll put the back burners on that. Unfortunately, due to all sorts of things. But anyway, I think for simplicity's sake, we'll just say I want to travel someplace this year, and I think that place will probably be Iceland. Sorry, not Ireland.
Either
no
would be
offense
decent.
to Ireland, but
Yeah,
Ireland. Yeah, I don't drink anymore, so Ireland doesn't have the appeal that it probably once would have.
That's fair.
But Iceland, I think that would be kind of an entry point, especially financially for me right now, would be a good... and I turned 50.
You did.
A few weeks
Happy
ago.
birthday.
So
Late.
I am a half century old, everyone. It's hard to believe, as shockingly young as I look.
That's a half century of wisdom, though, so...
Yeah.
I feel like now that you've turned 50, I need to completely retire.
Call me my lord.
Lord Shiloh, or completely retire the old person jokes and only talk to you for your wisdom and...
Yeah, because I'm officially senile and actually old.
Yeah.
So
did you know this is random,
the elderly.
Random bit of info. There was some monk... and it was of the variety that wore these like elaborate black and red robes with like the hoods, like legitimately looked like a wizard. And he lived and died his whole life without ever seeing a woman. So unfortunately that can't be you, but
no.
What an interesting life to live, I suppose. But
yeah. So I guess. Yeah.
So anyway. Iceland.
Iceland. We'll just say that for now. Okay. There are some other things. Honestly, I'd like to play a little bit less games. I know I'm cheating a little bit and reading your show notes, and you have some book stuff, and I slacked really, really hard last year and in reading. And I
but it was really hard not to, with
all the games. Yeah, I know. So this year I'm planning on getting back into that. I need to really start a lot of things, but I want to at least make a full gung-ho attempt at reading Robert Jordan this year, at least starting The Wheel of Time.
Okay.
Because the show has kind of put a little spark in me and to give it a shot. So I know initially it might be a little hard to do, but I'm gonna give it my old college try. Well, harder than the college try. And gaming wise, man, I've got a back catalog of games from last year that I still need to finish up. Number one being Baldur's Gate 3. It's also on my what to look forward to this year, because I am looking forward to doing some of this stuff. There are so many games that I need to finish up. So in between periods when not much is going on, and I'm going to try to knock some of those out. So
Gotcha.
keep on keeping on. So
I was going to ask you, have you seen the movie The Secret Life of Walter Mitty?
no.
I believe that's the name of it. It is about this office worker who gives up everything to go on a trip to Iceland. I think it's Iceland or Greenland or one of the two, or somewhere in Norway. I don't know. And it's a very good movie, probably based on a book, but you should absolutely check that out and watch it,
I'll
because
have to give that a watch.
what'll happen is you'll watch this movie and then it'll come time to record, that week, and you won't show up, and I'll be like,
I'll be gone.
yeah, he went to Iceland. He just dropped everything and went. So no. But yeah, that sounds exciting. That specifically, but also I resonate with your play less games. I don't know if I'm going to intentionally focus on that, but I did kind of have, and I didn't put this one on the notes, but I did kind of have a resolution that went along with that for myself, which was just be more intentional about the games I play rather than like try to cram in all the, everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, and I think it's going to be easier because there's not as much that's coming out this year that is like a must play. But outside of video games, I do have, well, I guess one of these is video games, and that is I every year I'm making a playlist from my Steam library of games that I want to play that year. And so this year I've got 8. There was like 10, but that was Portal and Portal 2. Mm-hmm. And so now there's 8 left on this playlist that I'm like, I want to touch this year. I think the hardest or the most time-consuming one of those is Cyberpunk 2077, and then Phantom Liberty. So I'd like to get to that this year. I don't know to what capacity, because I'll be playing it on PC, so I won't be able to just dive into Phantom Liberty, because that was, originally played on Xbox.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I know that the game is vastly improved from when we played it on GG Party Chat. So yeah, just getting through those 8 games specifically, which are all older games that have already released that I just want to play. I do want to read 20 books this year. I did successfully read 10 books in 2023, which was my Goodreads challenge. Mm-hmm. Let me see if I can name those. It was Ruination, which is in Runeterra. I counted the Godwoken graphic novel that's from Divinity Original Sin 2. I read Light of the Jedi, which is High Republic era Star Wars. I read The Rising Storm, which is the second book in that series. I read, took me 3 months, but I read House of Leaves.
That's 8 books right there.
It was, and it's right there, actually, where my finger is. If you're watching on YouTube, it's the one right underneath Jurassic World. So that was 5, and then I read Tress in the Emerald Sea, which is a Brandon Sanderson book. I read the Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England, or something is the name of it. Also Brandon Sanderson. I read Mouse, which is a graphic novel about the Holocaust from the perspective of the son of one of the Jewish... I don't like calling them prisoners, because it's like... But they were, prisoners of... but he survived Auschwitz. Mm-hmm. And then I read... what am I missing? I don't know. I'm already lost.
Something.
I'm missing 2 books that apparently I read at some point last year. But I'm looking at I'm looking off to the side to see if any of them are sitting on that shelf, and I don't think so. But I think one of them was also like the World of Runeterra, which is more of just a, like a picture book with text and stuff. So I did read books, and I did make it. And this year I want to double it and go up to 20. And I've already read one, which was The Road. I'm not going to do a book report for it, but let me just tell you, if you've never read The Road, listener, and doubly so if you've never seen the movie, it is one heck of a way to start the new year as far as content goes, because it is not a happy book at all. But it was a very impactful read because it got me thinking like how I would actually operate in a similar scenario with one of my kids, Yeah. And you know how like maybe when you're younger, you're like, man, apocalypse movies are so dumb. Like if everybody just worked together, they, it wouldn't be a problem at all. But then the reality is like, you just wouldn't trust anybody ever.
Yeah.
So, so The Road, wow. Yeah. What a I can only go up from here as far as
it doesn't get more
goes.
Depressing than The Road, really.
Yeah. And so then finally, I guess my last New Year's resolution would be I want to have a consistent family board game night in my household. So That's far, cool. So good. And the nice thing is like my older kids are getting older to the point where they actually want to play games now. And so,
they understand them a little bit better than
yes.
throw dice at dad.
And what's interesting is when I was a kid, not when I was a kid, when I first got married, that was something my wife and I would do all the time, is play games or have people over and play games or whatever. Well, then once we started having kids and the kids were baby age and toddler age, there was a period of like 2 to 3 years where I just didn't play board games at all. Like didn't have the energy, didn't have the time, didn't have the energy.
Yeah.
It was easier to sit and play a video game, because one, you could do that solo, but two, I didn't have to learn a board game, teach the wife a board game, teach other people a board game. But now we're getting to the point where I can teach the older kids and they have fun. So
nice.
So that's what I'm doing. 2024. What are you looking forward to, Shiloh? What has got you excited in 2024?
Oddly, I was making this list late last night, and I realized there's a lot of pretty good stuff coming in 2024. I kind of had me a lot more optimistic than initially. I was going to put pen to, or let's say fingers to keyboard and keyboard to eyes and eyes to going, oh no, this is not looking good for this year.
Yeah.
Biggest thing for me right off the bat, and I didn't know this until I did a little research, and don't blame me if this doesn't come true, but apparently Hellblade 2 is coming out this year and has a release date, from what I gathered through my internet research, on May 21st of this year. So,
which is way sooner than I thought. For sure.
Same. And it has me skeptical because we don't know. It's hard to really say at this point when anything comes out. But I do have faith. I don't think Ninja Theory, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Publishes this game. I don't think they have a track record of really pulling the rug out from under customers or anything like that. So
right.
I think it will come, and I'm hoping it's really, really good. And even if it's not, it will be at least something new, a new Hellblade, and that'll be exciting. So that's probably my biggest, because that is one of my favorite games pretty much of all time. So
interesting. Are you going to play through the first one again.
I might, yeah.
prior.
That would be fun. That would be fun.
Maybe I should.
I haven't
too.
played it since we played it in GG Party Chat. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still remember the night I first played that game because I don't know if we had planned to do the episode and then I played it, or if I played it. I don't even know which one of us played it first. I think it was you. But I do know that the wife and kids were out of the house. I was sitting at my couch watching some like YouTube video on this mansion in like the Pacific Northwest or in like Norway or some place with a lot of big tall trees and rainy weather and whatever else. And the mansion looked sick. And as I was sitting there, I was like, I feel like I should play Hellblade now. And I fired it up, and that's all she wrote. But it's amazing that I distinctly remember that because of drawing that connection between this like Pacific Northwest architecture into like this just inspired me to delve into the Norse world of Hellblade. So
yeah. Well, there you go.
yeah, but May 21st is. I am skeptical as well. I think like I thought I was expecting the at least the fall, but probably like winter time when everything releases. But May would be really fun.
October. But yeah, May 21st. So we shall see.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I'll play it. I guess it just depends if it comes to Game Pass or not. I think it does. So
Yeah.
I might play it on the Xbox, just for the bigger screen, probably, if nothing else,
Yeah.
for me anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, Hellblade 2 is probably the new game for 2024 that I'm most looking forward to. I think it's safe to assume that Light No Fire is not coming out, right?
No.
This year? Okay.
I would, that would.
Otherwise, that's at the top of the list. So maybe slightly under Hellblade.
Definitely interested highly on that game. So, but I don't think, probably my guess would be 2026, but
Yeah.
they could surprise, if anything, it would surprise me if it came out in 2025. So
They have been working on it for like 5 years already, so
yeah, we'll see.
it only took 6 years for Larian to cook Baldur's Gate 3. And so interesting comparison here. It took, 6 years for Larian to develop Baldur's Gate 3? And they did that probably utilizing a lot of the systems of Divinity Original Sin 2. Mm-hmm. So you look at maybe the comparison to Light No Fire versus No Man's Sky. 5 years it took them, or whatever. Like they're leveraging probably a lot of the same systems from No Man's Sky into this new one. So we could see it within the next year, but
Yeah.
or year and a half, I guess.
I know early access is a no-no word for some people, but if you look at Baldur's Gate 3 as a prime example of someone actually utilizing early access to its utmost potential, basically,
Yeah.
excuse me, taking a snippet of the game and not necessarily the complete snippet of that snippet of a game, make that accessible to whoever gets early access, and then of course you get the full game when it gets launched. But then all the feedback over the years, they've changed that game,
Refined it,
just refined it, and I think it probably, if you look at reviewers that actually got to play early access and then played near the end of the game, the end of the game for a lot of these people seemed like it was a little more unfinished than the first part. Well, that's because they had all those years, 5 years of early access of people, just feedback after feedback after feedback. So maybe Light No Fire will go in that direction. I know one of the games on my list. Hopefully, they're going to take a little bit of that kind of a cue from Baldur's Gate 3, take a little bit of that and run with it as far as player feedback, what works, what doesn't, being able to change the game, and then eventually fully releasing the game.
Yeah.
Rather than just early access that just lasts indefinitely and may go on forever or whatever. So,
Did you play much of the Baldur's Gate 3 early access? I don't recall.
I didn't, because I didn't want to spoil
Okay.
myself on it. I tinkered around with character creator. I putzed around
Which
with
even
combat
that
a little bit.
changed big time.
Even that
too.
changed,
Yeah.
a lot. So, it's early access is early access for a reason, and not necessarily like extended beta. That's not what it should be. It
Yeah.
should be player feedback and gathering notes and putting pens and pencils to the grindstone and really kind of nitpicking the game to pieces to kind of figure out, all right, this is what is going to work, this isn't going to work, we should change our direction, maybe not 360, but maybe 180 a little bit. So I don't know.
Yeah,
But,
you're right. And the interesting thing was Baldur's Gate 3 was like true early access. Like you were getting early access and you could only play to like level 5 or something, which in hindsight is, I remember hearing about this whole early access thing, and that had been in early access for like 2 years. And I was like, man, like that means like, that you can already play like most of the game, and like what is there left for them to release? Well, boy, was I wrong, because level 5 is not even, it's probably 25% of the game as far as, where content is stacked. So, but what I was going to say is that what's interesting to me is like a game like V Rising is in early access still, but the game is like the whole game is basically there. And so I think a lot of these companies are using early access as a way to release something with like a promise that they are constantly going to be improving upon it. Because think Grounded, right? Like we played Grounded on Game Pass in early access, and truth be told, the Grounded that we played back then is way different than what the Grounded that released was. All better things in the release version, but the loop of it was still there. Whereas Baldur's Gate 3, like, they released an early access, you can play up to 5th level. There was still a ton of unknowns on what was going to be in the other part of the game. So
story wasn't, you weren't spoiled on any part of the story. You basically got to a certain point and it's like, that's it.
So
as far as you can go.
The other one that you were referencing is that, well, you could probably put both Nightingale and PAX Day. I'm looking at your list here.
Yeah.
You want to talk about those?
Well, it was, in particular, it was PAX Day.
Okay.
I know that it's been announced that it is going to be an early access coming this spring. What that entails, I don't know. I know I've signed up for alphas.
Yep.
And I haven't gotten into one yet. Spoiler alert. But I know that they've only been testing things like player crafting, like being able to basically just opening up the world to see what players can build. And then, of course, you have these streamers like Asmongold that basically have a huge following and try to go into this quote unquote dungeon with basically pickaxes and nothing else and against God knows what, but it looks amazing. Truth be told, I don't know if it'll be the game for me, but it looks amazing. I also don't know if it'll run on my PC, but we'll have to wait and see about that one. But hopefully when it does come out in early access, people can pick it up, and hopefully they have this model. If you buy early access, you get, you can play the game, whatever that entails. If it's just crafting and building stuff, and then maybe kind of they can pigeonhole some fighting elements into it down the road. I'm sure that it'll just be all everything as much as possible, and then they can get the feedback for it along the way and eventually release a complete product that general customers can pick up and buy. Hopefully that's the model they're going for, and it's not a lot of nickel and dimey kind of real predatory kind of stuff. I don't think it will be. This is a pretty, at least what it seems like, pretty good company that it's coming out of, where they're coming from with it. So we'll see. But I am looking forward to at least trying that or watching it develop and see how it unfolds, because it is another almost New World-ish kind of survival MMO hybrid that looks really interesting. And it also has a lot of Fallout 76 vibes, which not necessarily like power suits and
not the tech era, but
yeah, not that, nothing like that. I'm talking about being able to basically go into the open world and claim a plot of land for yourself and then build upon that in a particular style, however you want to do it. With a more Norwegian fantasy medieval looking world. Like, it looks really, really crisp and clean and good, and I don't know, it looks intriguing to me, so I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I also put that for all the same reasons, both that and Nightingale. Nightingale being, I guess, like, I don't really know much about that one as a whole, but I know it's a similar thing. It's going to have a hub world where you go through these different worlds. Maybe like Remnant 2, I don't know. Maybe like Destiny 2, I don't know. But it is going to be both of these being multiplayer. But yeah, those are more like we talk Hellblade 2. Like, I'm looking forward to Hellblade 2 because I know I'm going to play it, and I foresee it being a great game. But these other two, we just don't know where they're going to land when we're actually playing it. It may be something that we're just like,
The concepts are really good, and they intrigue me a lot, both of these games. Nightingale has that Remnant 2 vibe with it, along with kind of this almost new worldy colonial sort of steampunky looking animations and worlds, and then it has the crafting, so it's a survival Remnant 2 with fantasy element. It's a very interesting looking game,
and it's not just like typical fantasy, it's like dark fae fantasy, like any Magic the Gathering fans, like maybe like Eventide and Morningside, Eventide, whatever, Lorwyn, whatever the old set was with all the fairies where they never released a human card. It's got that sort of like dark fairy, but it's not like fairies, it's like,
no, it's fae. Like D&D, fae is not necessarily a good thing. It's very mischievous and dark, and
this isn't,
you probably aren't going to get out alive type of fae world. So
so that's Nightingale, PAX Day. Something on my list specifically, well, not specifically because it's also on yours, is Arcane Season 2. And I wanted to talk about this specifically because Riot Games just laid off like 500 employees. And if you've been anywhere in the gaming space, we could have done honestly, we could have probably done an entire episode on gaming news and layoffs. Because
just layoffs across the board.
Yeah, between the whole Palworld versus Pokemon thing, the whole Asmongold getting roasted by the internet for one of his takes on Palworld and AI content creation, to like layoffs at Riot. Microsoft just laid off 1,500 Blizzard Activision employees,
plus ZeniMax and
ZeniMax. But it's just, we could talk about that day in and day out probably for the next month. But with Riot specifically, another aspect of that is that they are closing Riot Forge, which was the division that would partner with indie developers to develop games in the Runeterra universe, that, you know, what League of Legends is set in. And of course, this is their own unique IP. So Arcane's a part of Runeterra. That book, Ruination, very good book. It's over there, in fact, on that shelf. That's in the universe of Runeterra. League of Legends is. The Legends of Runeterra online card game is there. But then there's these Riot Forge games like Ruined King, a League of Legends story, the one that we both want to play. But then they came out with Convergence last year, Mage Seeker, and then Songs of Nunu, which is a more like, I'm not going to say kid-friendly, but more like happy, joyful-looking, you know, platformer type game. Like, think like Spyro from the olden days.
Okay.
But so, you know, this program or this division that was built to allow and give indie developers the opportunity to build a game in this universe. Well, they're closing that after years of, you know, work with it. I don't know if their games never reached sort of the big success that they were looking for. If all along it was just more of like a experimental division type thing. But what that really means is that for now, the only place, or I guess the most upcoming way you're going to get Runeterra lore is via Arcane, which is coming out with a season 2 this year. Did you watch the little teaser trailer for it?
I did. So, and it looks good. I didn't realize that Jinx was going to be in it again. I thought they were moving away from that. I think supposedly she is. I don't know why she wouldn't be, but...
Well, I think the rumor was that they were going to do a season
per
the
character.
Season for her, a season for an unrelated character in another part of the world.
Yeah.
But I think they're just... Well, I mean, you know how it ends.
Yeah.
It definitely ends in a way where they could have a season 2 in the same universe, so, or the same storyline. So,
yeah, we'll see.
But yeah, that comes late this year. Definitely looking forward to that.
Yes.
I'm trying to look for other ones that we've got the same on. I guess the MMO discussion. You've got... Yeah. Who knows what MMOs will end up playing this year. I feel that, really, you know, like we've kind of gotten to the point where we're playing the big ones now, and to a point where we can kind of rotate between them as we want. And then each of us have, you know, Shiloh and I specifically have our own like pet MMO that we'll play either solo or with other people. So yours being New World, and mine being RuneScape, which I didn't include at all in any of the discussion here because RuneScape is like an addiction you can just never shake fully. Even after years of sobriety, you just come back to it just like day one. So, but do you want to talk New World a bit for yourself and our dear friends Ardeth and Weevil?
Yeah, so I am looking forward. New World's been real... They released a roadmap last year and stuck to it. Not case in point, like it wasn't... They didn't hit everything that they wanted to, which is, you know, that's fine.
Understandable, yeah.
Most companies don't. But they're going to release a new roadmap in May, which is sort of late, but because a lot of these other, you know, I know WoW just released theirs, the end of 2023 for 2024.
Yeah.
ZeniMax has released their, you know, for the Gold Road, their announcement was in mid-January, about a week ago, I think. So that kind of spells out what what ESO is going to be this year. Final Fantasy did theirs at what late fall last year with the I
Dawn
guess
Trail.
for Final Fantasy Fest or whatever it was, and then with the release of Dawn Trail, Final Fantasy 14 coming to Xbox, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. New World's been very well. Then in Guild Wars 2, but we still don't really know exactly where Guild Wars 2 is going to be in 2024, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I could go into what I hope that Guild Wars 2 is going to go back to, but maybe we'll touch on that later. But but New World has been very, not necessarily sketchy, but they've released this current season, which has had a few issues here and there, but it's New World. We just kind of come to expect that. But they have implemented a looking for group like Dungeon Finder, Dungeon Queue thing, cross server Dungeon Queue at that, which it's a big deal. I don't know if, I guess Final Fantasy does that. I can't think of too many MMOs.
WoW does.
It was a cross server though.
Yeah.
Is it? Okay.
Because like the Mythic Plus queue, you'll get in if they ever. I think it's if they ever have that asterisk next to their name.
Okay. So there's this. So it's a big deal, and it's a good amount of technology. They've also been promising gamepad support, which leads a lot of people to believe, and I think this is coming, that New World will probably be coming to console pretty soon.
Of every MMO that's out there currently, New World is the one that could, in my opinion, most easily be translated to console. Easily.
Yeah.
I mean, you only
Guild
got
Wars 2 could be, but I don't. They dropped the ball on that at launch, and I don't think they're going to go back to doing that. So,
and like Final Fantasy 14 is, it's already on PlayStation, and it will be on Xbox at some point this year. So, but New World, I mean, they've got the three skills plus an ult, right? And then you've got like a potion and utility something maybe up
it's
there.
It's easy to map. If ESO can do it, then New World can do it.
And I think that's my biggest like suggestion here is like if ESO can do it and Final Fantasy's going to do it, New World absolutely could. And honestly, I feel like New World would find more success on console than it would on PlayStation on computer, because the market's not very strong with MMOs on console. You have ESO, and soon to be Final Fantasy 14 offered on all consoles, and that's it, really, right? I mean, there's others like Black Desert, and there was Terra at one point, and and people say Destiny 2 is an MMO, but
well, yeah, and there's some free to play stuff on there. Like Blast, and there's a bunch, but they're not worth talking about, really.
No.
But anyway, so yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do, and if they're going to have a new expansion this year, which I don't know if they will. I think they might be focusing in on maybe trying to get the dungeon queue system running and going, just fixing their stuff, and then hopefully planning for a console release. So we'll see. And maybe because Rise of the Angry Earth kind of came out of nowhere last year and surprised a lot of people. So maybe they have something up their sleeve for the end of this year. So I don't know. We shall see.
We shall see. My MMO, I put 2 here. Now, the reality is Guild Wars 2 is easy to just jump back into. Ultimately, like, there's no better MMO for, I just want to log in and pick a zone and just get into trouble, right? But the 2 that I specifically put on here are World of Warcraft and then Final Fantasy 14. Now, Final Fantasy 14 I'll start with because, again, the key takeaways are that it's coming to Xbox, and Final Fantasy 14 does crossplay across all the different devices. So PlayStation and PC can play together. I'm assuming then when Xbox comes out, all three will get to play together. And that'll be great, like I've said, for the console. But then Dawn Trail is coming out, and while I'm the highest level job I have is Monk, big surprise, at level 48 or 49. And my MSQ is like level 50 or 49. It was one of those, we talked about this obviously like a few weeks ago where, or I don't remember if it was you or Beetle or something, but it was like you're doing like level 46 MSQ, and then all of a sudden it's like, and level 50. You're like, okay, so there's 4 levels here missing from the main story quest, or not missing, but they just put this random jump when there was a very consistent 1 to 46 MSQ.
Yeah.
And so going through all that, like when Dawn Trail comes out, I think part of that is texture and graphical update, or maybe that's already happened. I don't know. So anyway, obviously, Final Fantasy XIV being the second biggest MMO, I'd say. So then that brings us to WoW, which I've always had the opinion that WoW is one of those games that, like, if you weren't there in its glory days of those being like launch through Lich King, Wrath of the Lich King, that you couldn't really get into it. But as we took our little break, from the last episode of the year of 2023 and Christmas and all this stuff, I've seen several of our friends, you included, play World of Warcraft, really get into certain aspects of it. And then we watched the Warcraft movie in Discord one night, and that was better than I expected. And it got me thinking about just like the world of Azeroth, the design of like the fantasy bit of it. And I've really come to respect that, like the almost steampunk fantasy type you've got going on with gnomes and airships. And I mean, I was showing my kids my mounts the other day, and I have a motorcycle. So, it's a very janky looking motorcycle, but it's a motorcycle nonetheless. So there's those elements to it. And I've always said that like the best MMO worlds are the ones that can bridge the gap between fantasy and a bit of sci-fi technology. Final Fantasy XIV does it. Guild Wars 2 does it. World of Warcraft does it. So I've always enjoyed that. But looking at World of Warcraft, one of the tipping point for me to reinstall and resub was one of my friends in real life. His name's Derek. He wants to do, like he's never done it, wants to do the Mythic Plus grind. And it was kind of like the tipping point or the straw that broke the camel's back, however you want to look at it. But he mentions this, and I was like, well, I know several people that would probably be in on this, or at the very least we could get like a few people to be consistent and then just fill, as long as we are doing the roles of healer and tank, with 1 or 2 really high level DPS. We could fill 1 person or 2 people on DPS and have some success. Mm-hmm. And then the other motivator for that was, the one thing, and I'll be curious to see if you think the same thing. The one thing I miss from ESO was you, myself, our friend P. Matty, and our friend Swine, and our weekly dungeon grinding. We just pick a dungeon and go for what they call it in that game, like the trifecta, which was, doing a no-death run, a speed run, and then, what was it? The hard mode was the third one.
Yeah.
So I really miss that. And part of that's, because like you were saying at the beginning of this episode, like raiding an ESO at least requires 12 people to fully commit to working on something week after week after week. And if even one of those people bails, then you have to find a replacement. And then that replacement may not jive with the group. But then, this is also 12 people you're trying to schedule with. So it's much easier to schedule with 4 people. And you can also get 4 to 5 people that are at the same commitment level and also the same skill level. And it's simpler. And so, just thinking about that and looking at like how Mythic, I briefly did Mythic Plus in April of last year, and I enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy solo queuing, albeit the solo queuing grind is much better than ESO because they actually have like an LFG that's built around it. But in general, I'm like, okay, maybe this is the chance to actually see like how comparable higher tier dungeons are in World of Warcraft to ESO. And then on top of that, with, as you mentioned, like the entire roadmap that they put out with the War Within, and then the 2 expansions after that, they've committed to kind of playing with their hand open or developing with their hands open. Like, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to, be transparent about it for the first time in Blizzard's history. So, we'll see what happens. But, the next expansion looks neat. The quality of life stuff, specifically that, like, if you get a transmog piece of gear from something on a monk, which is cloth or leather, let's say you get a mail piece or a heavy armor piece, plate piece. Typically, you wouldn't be able to do anything with that. It's just a wasted drop. But in the future, with War Within, you'll be able to transmog that no matter what. And then on any other character that can wear that gear, you could go and transmog it. And that's a huge thing. So that's basically my word vomit on World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV. Is there anything you wanted to add to either of those games?
No, I think that
Okay.
The War Within looks really, really good. I was impressed with Chris Metzen with his intro to that whole thing during BlizzCon. It's hard not to get pumped about it, even if you're not the greatest, biggest WoW fan in the world.
Yeah, which is both of us, honestly.
Yeah, and I was still like, oh, that looks good. Looks really good. And their cinematics are amazing. Most recent one is
I legit
insane.
didn't know it was CGI
Animation for a while. Yeah,
for like the first
crazy.
50 seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, till the orc showed up. Really,
It's like, well, that's
and then
clearly
even then I was like,
CGI.
wait, how did they get that guy looking so good? Oh wait, no.
Where is that from? Detroit? I better not make jokes if the Lions are they losing? I don't want to look it
They
up
were winning
because it'll break
hardcore.
my recording.
Yeah, but careful, Carb will come through the mic and grab you by the neck. But yeah, the only thing that I worry about, and this is probably way off.
They didn't win,
Base.
Shiloh. Sorry,
What?
they didn't win. 31 to
didn't win.
34, San Francisco.
Oh, they just.
So if you're listening to this on release day, we
Sorry,
are
Carl.
recording at the. I'm not a big football person, so I'm going to try to. The NFC Championship, Lions versus the 49ers. This would be the first. The Lions have never won a Super Bowl, so they're obviously the underdogs. But 49ers beat them by 3 points.
Wow, they were up 24 to 7 at the half and crapped the bed.
Yep.
Well, sorry, Detroit.
Yeah.
But
Where
the
was?
Wolverines
Sorry,
won,
that was
so-
like a complete derailment of whatever you were
It
saying.
was. That's fine. I would have never guessed that the Lions were going to lose, but anyway. So the only other company I've in most recent history that has done something like this, and no one's going to really appreciate me saying this, but it's the truth, is Bungie with Destiny 2's roadmap of the big three
Oh,
end
yeah.
of the Witch Queen. What was it? Witch Queen, Lightfall, and then
The final shape.
the final shape. So I kind of worry. And on paper, when we saw that, I was like, oh, this is great. It's like, I'm on board with this. Like, this is a really cool roadmap. And they did some good with that, but then they did
Well, yeah,
a lot
the
of
Witch
bad.
Queen was, in my opinion, a good start, and then
Oh, yeah.
kind of just fell apart.
Yeah, it just fell apart. So we'll see. I think, I mean, I'm not comparing Bungie to Blizzard at all, but I'm just saying that Bungie's did something like this with a unveiling of 3 huge expansions back to back to back, with this overarching story. So we'll see how it goes. Needless to say, I bought the War Within already. Like, I was like, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and get this, get it now and
Yeah.
sign me up down the road. So I'll be playing WoW. I am now, but even if I take a break for a while, and that's a thing, especially with Final Fantasy 14 with you, with me in that game, like it gets to the point where you probably should just take a break for a little bit, as much story as you have to ingest.
Well, we
It
did
can
that
be a
with Guild
lot.
Wars 2 as well. I mean, we took a break
Yeah.
to play WoW and other things for a while, and then we're like, yeah, let's come back to it and finish it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, you will just get burnt out. So,
Yeah.
for Final Fantasy 14's sake, it's probably best to just get to a point, take a little breather, switch subs, then go back. There's no big, it's not, you're not hurting anyone's feelings, I don't think. And it's not like these companies really
don't think
care.
so.
They're not going to send you emails. We missed you so much. The only
RuneScape
people
does,
that do that
in
is
fact.
Netflix. So
And Netflix.
RuneScape does do that.
Yeah, they're like,
can't
this is
think
what
of a company.
you've missed in Gillinor. And it's like, I know I've
that's
missed
pretty
this.
cool.
So,
I can maybe Lord of the Rings Online does that, or used to do that. I can't remember. I'm trying to think of an MMO company that I don't even think EverQuest 2 did it. That's Sony Online. They don't care. So,
yeah.
but anyway, but yeah, I am looking forward to Final Fantasy 14 coming to console with Dawn Trail, and I had that on my list. I don't know. I am still not sold on these 2 new jobs that they unveiled. The Viper just seems like I don't know, not really a pirate.
yeah,
but
like
not-
a Wish.com pirate, I guess. If
yeah,
that.
and then the Bob Ross job, the Pictomancer, like I'm
See,
like,
that
oh,
one I am a little
it looks
interested in.
interesting, but I'm like, okay,
Yeah, I don't know how it's going to work, but like the concept, I'm like, okay, could be.
sure.
I mean, it's kind of, it falls into the same vein for
Color
me as
me
like
interesting.
God dang it. I should just have the
Undead joke.
sound bite on here for the drums, but I feel you ultimately is where I'm going with this, is that it's the jobs aren't really the drawing point. Really, if anything, the highlight for us would be going to Xbox. So some of our friends, first and foremost Reaper, can play a different MMO than ESO. So
Yeah. Well, yeah. It'll be interesting to see, especially with what I mentioned before with New World, like if they're going to try to jump onto this bandwagon with Final Fantasy 14 and maybe try to. Thing is, they won't be really competing because there's no sub.
yeah.
They'll be competing for money outright, but once you buy New World, it's yours. So
I will say, and I respect you and Weevil and Ardeth who enjoy and play the game, but if Amazon Game Studios track record is any indication, I don't know if they will nail this. And the thing, in my opinion, that they need to nail is letting it be crossplay between PC. Because if
Yeah.
it's not, well, that doesn't benefit anyone. It doesn't benefit the PC players who get an influx of new players. And then the Xbox players, like we wouldn't be able to play with them at any rate. But if they make it crossplay, then you're going to see people from PC jumping back in because now suddenly they've got friends that they could play with. So
Yeah, that's true. Very true. Time will tell on that one.
time will tell. Well, I have only two more. Well, no, I just have one more thing. Not not video game related. Do you have anything you want to add before we wrap up?
I just had just one more thing. Well, a couple more things game related. Star Wars Outlaws, which I know you are
Big Star Wars
thinking
fan.
it probably won't come out until 2025, but
The release date says 2024, but
I don't think it's gonna happen. It's supposed to come out spring 2024. But
I don't think so. I thought it got pushed back already, but two,
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah, but I could be inventing that in my head just on Star Wars track record. But with the way that Jedi Survivor released on PC, which was extremely buggy and unoptimized, it's probably in their best interest to release it, push it back and polish, but
Yeah.
and it's the thing to do. So anytime there's an actual release date, I just don't believe it until the game's out.
Yeah.
Even Baldur's Gate 3 did not release when it said it did. They released earlier. It was completely unexpected. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you just can't trust release date. You can give me a year, and when I get into that year, then I'm like, yeah, maybe. But
We'll see. Yeah, that was pretty much it for games. I did have Dragon's Dogma 2. That game does look interesting. I played a little bit of the first one, never completely got through it. But this second one does look good. And I think it will be co-op too, which makes it kind of fun. Like, it could be a more fantasy, monster hunter-y, hopefully better connectivity kind of thing going on with it, that you could play through with some friends, kind of play through an actual RPG with friends and have big encounters that are, I won't say Souls-like, but Souls-light is what we'll say. So
okay,
be a lot of fun.
yeah.
Could be a lot of fun. We'll see. I'm sure it'll be good because the first one was really good.
Yeah.
Although it came out a long time ago. But yeah, so that one is on the horizon for this year. Other than that, what do you have for non-gaming things to look forward to?
Well, board games, as of September or early October of 2023, I started attending a bi-weekly board game night with some friends. And there's anywhere from 4 to 9 people that show up to this. And so obviously, board games there's no MMO of board gaming. Well, party games, but, and so like we play different things each week. Sometimes there's 2 different tables playing games. And so I'm not really like I'm not involved, but I'm not really in the board gaming sphere like I once was. Like when we launched GG Party Chat, if you're a listener from back then, you also know that I launched the No Cube Zone at the same time, which was the board game version of GG Party Chat. GG Party Chat was the video game version of the No Cube Zone. And heavy into board gaming, would go to conventions, talk with people in the not just the industry, but like other content creators and everything, and just have loved board games. And as I mentioned in our resolution part of this episode, I'd like to get a family game night going. And so thinking about stuff I'm looking forward to, there's a Kickstarter that I backed in, I think it was 2021, honestly, like October of 2021, called The Seventh Citadel, which is a spiritual successor to a board game called The Seventh Continent. And that board game is It is. This is the best way I can explain it. It is like a choose your own adventure book meets a sandbox survival game with some sort of like mystery you're trying to solve. So you place your little your little meeple thing on the like a little tile, and the tile is like a picture, of like a part of a grander like map. And you can go north, south, east, west, and there's numbers for each of those cardinal directions. And let's say on your turn you're like, I want to go north, and so you go find the number that's listed. And you put it down, and it's another piece of the map. You can go explore there, and there's things you can do on these, like hunting or solving puzzles and stuff, and it's this whole thing. And so Seventh Citadel takes that concept and turns it into more of an RPG. So we'll see. It's not a game that you can like just pull out and be like, let's do this evening. You want to plan
it's a whole ordeal.
Yeah, like Mice and Mystics, right? And so with that, there's all that's coming within the next few months. In fact, I just got the email from the logistics center that received the shipment from China. But again, this game has the Kickstarter ended in like October of 2021. So we're talking 3 years later, like it's finally coming. And then another one that ended, I think at the middle of 2022, maybe, was the RuneScape Kingdoms board game. So there's actually a RuneScape themed board game coming out. And that ship it has quite literally sailed, but not in the figurative sense. The ship is literally on its way from China to the U.S. to be delivered. So all of these will be, or both of these will be received with probably by May, I would imagine.
Interesting.
Yeah. And that's the way the board game Kickstarter scene goes, though. Like you back something in 1 year, you write it off to tax. No. You'll get it like 2 years later. So don't get, super hyped for something that you're not getting immediately. But my whole point was like, I don't really follow new games, what's hot. Like I'm not seeking out like the board game, equivalent of the hot releases for video games. It's just, I've got what I've got. I'm going to play it. But at least I've got those Kickstarters coming. So,
yeah.
Anything you want to add, and we'll wrap it up? Anything you want to finish with?
Just a funny little tidbit. So, my biggest question for the year is Patrick Rothfuss's book 3 finally coming out for the King Killer Chronicles? Probably not. That's going on 13 years, Pat, so come on.
Is there any indication that he's close to releasing it or finishing it or what?
Yeah, there's been lots of indications of that for the past couple of years, I think. Okay. It's generally apologies, like, I know it's taking me forever. I know.
Meanwhile, Brandon Sanderson's written 15 books.
Yeah, exactly.
In 2 years, so.
But I'm really kind of holding on. I know he's releasing something, but it's another one of these little short stories, appendium to the King Killer stories that doesn't really have anything to do with. It has tie-ins to the novels, but
gotcha.
Yeah, it's not really a full on. Very similar to what George R.R. Martin is really doing for his last book, Winds of Winter.
Lollygagging.
Yeah, lollygagging, doing other projects.
That's funny.
Yeah, it's what it is. But so we probably won't see the Doors of Stone this year, but we can
hope.
We can hope, I guess. Just like we can hope that Star Wars Outlaws comes out this year.
I feel like Patrick Rothfuss releasing the third King Killer Chronicle book would be a bit more of a newsworthy subject than Outlaws actually releasing this year, though.
Probably.
Be a big deal. So,
yeah.
Well, listener, that's what we've got. Or that's what we're looking forward to as far as all of our little hobbies. Before we completely wrap up this episode, I did want to mention 2 things that are coming to Questing the Multiverse in this season 2, whatever, 2024. The first of which is Shiloh's deck, and notice I said deck with an E, of many things.
Naughty peoples.
Yeah. Shiloh's deck of many things is a little concept that further, and if you're watching on YouTube, he's holding them up for you right now. But this furthers sort of our philosophy of podcasting, which is just to have conversations around our hobbies and see what we can explore and get into. So with this concept, Shiloh, do you want to tell our listener kind of what you have in mind for this?
It's a mystery on top of an enigma, on top of wrapped in a box of enigma, wrapped in foil.
Printed on a card.
If you're not familiar with the deck of many things, and I said deck with an E.
I don't think you can only tell that joke once.
No, sorry. Well, I'm reiterating, because you know our listeners. So the deck of many things is a well, it's not a real life deck. It's a deck in Dungeons and Dragons that exist in Dungeons and Dragons. It's a 22 card hand. We'll just say hand from now on. And it's similar to like a tarot card, but in D&D universe, it's got, these cards have magical properties. And if you're playing the game and you stumble across a deck of many things and you draw a card, things will happen, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a really cool device that you can have fun with in Dungeons and Dragons if you're player characters stumble upon it, or maybe they find one card and it does something for them and they try to get more cards.
There's multiple of these decks, right, in the universe? Like it's not just like it's like a bag of holding, like you could find. Yeah,
I would assume so.
Okay.
Do
all the decks do the same thing, or is that left to the DM to decide?
That's more or less left to the DM. Like I've got 2 cards here that I'm holding them up. You can't read any of them, but this is a non-sanctioned Wizards of the Coast deck that I got from Etsy. But so they've got, like for instance, if you drew the star card in D&D, you would immediately gain a +2 to 1 ability score.
Oh,
pretty good, huh?
Now, when you use these in D&D, once you draw 1 card, is it like what would keep you from just drawing? Oh,
I think you can only draw 1 card, and then the deck stays shut. Or I don't know how it all works. I can't remember. If any of our listeners know more about the deck of many things, fill us in and write to us on our Discord, Questing the Multiverse,
or Twitter.
Or the
podcast,
or the X or whatever they call it now. But yeah, to fill us in on the deck. But our running theory is that we're going to do. We'd love listener feedback on this, but I wanted to come up with basically 22 things that I would either say, do, read on the show. If it's like tell a story, or I know the one is probably definitely going to be, because this is where this idea came up with in the first place, was read a 1-star review of a restaurant in a random city in the US, or maybe make it outside of the US, or maybe one of our listeners' cities or something like that. Those types of things. Or Shiloh, tell a story of when you were in the Boy Scouts or something. I don't know, but these types of random things that in every episode, or maybe not every episode, but more often than not, every other episode, maybe plus that,
Yes.
I would draw a card and then go down a sheet and say, okay, this is what the star card is this week. And then I would say, and we would go from there. So it's just a little fun little segment that we wanted to try out this year. And I'm kind of looking forward to it. Plus, I used up a gift card for these lovely little creatures right here because I cannot find my original deck of many things that I ran in a campaign in 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons years ago. I don't know what happened to them. We're going to say that they ended gone in a flood, but
They were drawn and then the deck vanished.
yeah, and they just vanished, and I can't find it.
It's a bummer.
Probably in some poor sap's hands, living on the streets.
It's like Jumanji. Someone in a foreign country has it. And
Yeah.
now it's caused all
Where did
sorts
these
of
come from?
problems or fortune. So yes, the deck of many things. Listener, if you have an idea for what one of the cards can be, you can tweet it at us at QTM Podcast on Twitter or X, or you can join our Discord, and the link of which is also on our Twitter, and leave it there. And for those who are already listening that are in Discord, leave it in the QTM discussion channel for us.
Yeah, or just tell us in a party chat, and we'll just make sure to write it down. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun. Nothing too crazy.
Yeah,
you
we're obviously
crazy
going
people.
to screen all of these ideas. We're not just going to take
As
them.
much as I would enjoy that, maybe.
This is a family show.
yeah,
for the most part.
family show. Darn it. Gosh darn it.
Gosh darn it. Well, I guess the next thing, and this is more of an announcement than anything, is that so if you watched the Christmas episode from last year, 2023, it wasn't the last episode, right? It was like second to last. I think it was
second to last.
You were introduced to our friend Jordan. Jordan was the host with me on the No Cube Zone. There was a third host, Rippy, but whatever. Jordan was the host with the most. And Jordan, we are going to be bringing on as a returning semi-regular co-host for board game centric episodes. As we've discussed previously, Questing the Multiverse is focused on all sorts of things nerdy. Obviously, both Shiloh and I play a lot of video games. We met playing video games, but I also play a ton of board games, and every once in a while, Shiloh gets a chance to play a board game with sibling or friend or whatever.
Yeah, when I'm not making board game related tables.
Yeah.
So I have
an
some
adjacent-
sort of a pan in this kitchen. So
Yes. So, I mean, as you know, we release episodes weekly, and all this is going to do is be a similar reoccurring episode in our same release schedule. Maybe once a month. I don't know if we've exactly landed on how frequently he is able to join us, as he is a busy man. But be looking forward to that, because it's going to be a chance for us to talk another hobby, but another side of just gaming as a pastime. And so Jordan is well versed in all things board games, and he's going to be leading those discussions when they arise. And Shiloh and I will get to take a back seat and just interact and respond and conversate like we always do anyway. So
yeah,
that's what you can look forward to in 2024 with Questing the Multiverse. I've ran out of tea and my water's dry. It's time to wrap this thing up. So without further ado, listener, we're back. We thank you for sticking with us and listening all of last season's episodes, and we look forward to hearing from you in 2024.
Yep.
Farewell.
Keep questing.
Still don't have an outro
We'll come
one-liner.
up with it. Yeah. Keep questing is pretty dumb.
Keep questing, nerds. I don't know.
Oh, Lord.
Something.
Bye, everyone.
Peace.
Questing the Multiverse is brought to you in part by Conic Productions, House Wood Designs, and Joel Crawford. To follow along with our adventures, please follow us on Twitter at QTM Podcast and consider joining our Discord, a link of which can be found in the show notes or in our Twitter bio. Want your questions or comments read on the show? Email us at questingthemultiverse@gmail.com. Finally, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider giving us a review or a follow wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you for listening.